Hey everyone, thanks for coming over here. We got questions and answers with Mountain Man tonight, and I got Diamond Lil joining me. Welcome everybody in. We're going to take questions from the chat too in a little while, so think about any questions you want to pick Mountain Man's brain with, and we'll ask them. So, you want to go first, Diamond, with what you have for Mountain Man?
Hi, everybody out in the chats. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep.
The chat. Thanks for tuning in.
That's my phone. Sorry.
Am I coming in okay?
You're coming in 5 by 5, Mountain Man.
Yeah.
That was my phone went off. I went live.
Oh.
Okay. You want me to start?
Sure. We'll just do generic hellos to everybody. Thanks for coming. All
right.
And we'll get started.
Okay. Mountain Man, thank you for taking my question.
Sure.
I've really been dumbfounded by, do you remember the Malaysian airline 370?
Yes.
Yeah, they never really have come out with any definitive answers to what happened. And I know that on board that plane was a large amount of citizens from the Netherlands. And I was wondering, and I'm trying to stay out of the conspiracy kind of thinking. But
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Do you think the pilot actually just wanted to take himself down and all the other people, or what do you think happened in that?
There's a good possibility of that, and it's been so long since I've checked that story out. But they do have documentation that he was, not stable, mentally stable, and you can cause a disruption in a flight so easily that can't be recovered from. And it's funny because I was watching a video about on YouTube about airplane crashes, and one of them was where a guy was just trying to show off. He didn't mean anything malicious. He didn't think he was doing anything really dangerous, but he put the plane into a bank. Remember when you used to make little paper airplanes?
Yes.
And sometimes you'd throw them and they would go a real long way, and you'd be, oh boy. Sometimes you'd throw them and they just cut to the right and drop right into the carpet. Remember?
Yes.
Well, that's the principles of flight. Where you set, once that plane gets a little sideways, it's cuts through the air. It has no lift under wings. I'm just giving this as an example what could happen, and it just slices right down, and you can't recover from it. And that happened, and the guy would say, hey, let me show you what I can do. And the pilot, or I think it was the co-pilot, screwed it up. He said, what are you doing? Before they knew it, they were heading to the ground. And so if you got somebody that wants to purposefully cause an accident with a plane, your life is literally in their hands. And if you got a nutcase, oh well.
So that's what they think. That's what they think happened here, huh?
There's a lot of different things. Even Don Lemon said was it a black hole? Who can say? It'll be like the Amelia Earhart mystery. People have been wondering about Amelia Earhart for 70 years.
Well, Larry Schulte saying in chat that there was a guy on that plane that was a big inheritor. If he died, he was a big banker or a big banking company. I don't know. So there's that. All right. There's another question. There's a question on the screen. Diamond, did he answer you good enough?
He did. And I just see Robert Z-Man just came in. So I just want to say good evening to Robert.
How you doing, Z-Man?
Thank you.
So Ronald's got one on the screen. Can you read them, Mountain Man, or do I need to read it to you?
Well, I see. I must, when I go to the comment screen, I just to let you all know what I see.
Okay.
I see over, I think, 12 or 13 comments at once, and they drift by. So,
Okay, I'll read it to you then. He said,
Oh.
so was it a plan for Garland to hire a special counsel to block the committees from answering questions? It's an ongoing issue and I can't answer.
Garland appointing a special counsel, he's feeling that that's being used as a strategy to stop congressional hearings. Is that the question?
So was it a plan for Garland to hire a special counsel to block the committees from answering questions?
I agree that they can use that strategy. And he's talking about the Biden situation, correct?
I don't know. So was it the plan for Garland to hire a special counsel? I think so, yes.
I believe it's yeah, he's looking to hire a special counsel to investigate Moron. Yes.
Moron is Biden.
So that would put people in a situation where if Jim Jordan were to start hearings on Joe Biden, that the witnesses could say, I can't answer because it's under investigation. I think that's what he's getting at. And that is true. You know, I can see that happening. But you got to remember when Jordan took over his position, Biden wasn't even on the table at that time. We have got so many things like Adam Schiff. He's committed, well, I won't say any words, you know, what I mean, but he's committed some acts that are very serious. There's a lot of investigations that the House needs to focus on, such as the J6 people, why they're still in jail, and what really happened to J6. I mean, they've got a plate full. This business with Biden can sit there and fester for all I care, because we all know he was breaking the law. I mean, this confidential or whatever papers he's got in his garage is peanuts compared to what he's been doing. I think am I still on?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. I need to get out of here because I can't tell what's happening. All right. Okay. I'm back on the screen.
Okay. Diamond, will you watch for questions in the chat for me for a minute?
I will. Thank you. Yeah,
no,
I will.
No, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, Mountain Man, do you think anything's going to come of these docs that they found? Now it's been 3 sets, I hear. They found some at his home, some at the university, and some somewhere else. I don't know where that other place is, though.
Well, there is going to be a lot coming out of it, but like the commenter said earlier, I couldn't read the comment who put it up, but if they're using appointing a special counsel to throw up a roadblock, we're going to be hard pressed to find out about it at this stage.
When do you think we'll start finding out some stuff? Do you have any ideas? Could you guess?
Well, see, we're pretty sophisticated. We're pretty advanced as far as what's going on. All the stuff that was going on before this Biden documents were very serious, but we know a lot about it, but most Americans don't. All the stuff Jim Jordan said he was going to investigate, all the stuff that McCarthy said he was going to put on the table, taking Swalwell out, taking Adam Schiff out, taking Ilhan Omar out, all the stuff that they've been doing. All that stuff is open to investigation, and Jordan's already started them. Bam, they come in with this Joe Biden classified documents thing. I think that it served its main purpose to the public to show that there's two-tier justice system, and what they were accusing Trump was ridiculous and phony compared to what Biden's been doing.
Okay. Diamond, you had another question, didn't you?
Nick, well, I was looking. Did you get Hebrew Hammers question?
What time?
Let me see here. Let me go
He
back
said they
over
have
to
been
the
here for
chat
6
because I
weeks.
have it. Yes, they've been. It's about Ukrainian military personnel training in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, Patriot missile system.
Yes. Yeah, that's happening. And I've been watching one guy for years, and he trained at that base, and he put up a post about it. He said, you know, he didn't say his own compatriots were taters. I use the word taters, and you stick a R in there, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's very distressing and unheard of. But that's what they're doing. They're bringing Ukrainian troops into on American soil to train on an American base for the Patriot missile system.
Hey, Red, do you want to come up on panel? I'll drop the link for you. Just let me know if you want to come up.
Mountain Man, are they looking to provide Ukraine with the Patriot missile system, or have
Oh
they
yeah, they
already?
said they were, and they're training.
Nice.
They're training people
Okay.
on how to use it.
Mountain Man, what do you make of all these celebrity deaths that have been happening?
Well, I'll get to. Let me just say real quick what Putin's response or the Russians' response was to the Patriot missiles.
Okay.
They put a warship off the coast and they put a warship off the coast of United Kingdom that has the ballistic missiles that can travel over 7,000 miles an hour, supersonic ballistic missiles, and they're just reminding them that the Patriot missile system, they're not going to do anything against that. So that just an aside, that's their response to the Pentagon saying that Ukraine is going to get Patriot missile systems. Patriot missiles, interceptors don't go 7,000 miles an hour. I can tell you that.
Okay.
Well, Lisa Marie Presley has got to be one of the most, as far as the general public is concerned, one of the most head-turning things, because we're talking generations of people who grew up with Michael Jackson's music on back into people who were Elvis Presley fans. From the 50s to now, Lisa Marie passing away like she did, and all the talk that goes along with it that we have to watch what we say on this platform, that is going to be bringing information home to people. Of course, I think it's terrible that she passed away. I think it'll be shown that she did get the treatment, I'll say, and it's going to wake a lot of people up.
Well, it's not just her. I mean, that actor from Eight is Enough has passed. Evel Knievel's son just passed away.
Right.
I mean, I could go on and on and on. I mean, the list is just growing with the obituaries here.
And the athletes too.
You know, how many people of the general population even know who Evel Knievel is? The other star you mentioned, is a little B level stardom, but everybody knows the name Presley, Elvis Presley. Everybody knows Michael Jackson. I mean, that's worldwide.
Right.
I'm just pointing out that hers is the highest profile, and when people read about that, they're going to see all the other stuff you just mentioned.
Right.
And then I'm saying to myself, what point are people going to start worrying about what's going to happen to themselves if they got involved in that kind of treatment?
Interesting.
Now, I will say, as an aside, I did talk to somebody from Brazil, and
Brazil.
yeah, that's the way I say it.
I know you do.
because they don't want anybody to know what's going on in that country.
Yeah.
And but they had 1,400 people, and they let about 600 of them go home with summonses to answer for very serious charges. And the rest of them, they took to a male prison camp and a female prison camp. But the reason I'm bringing it up is guess what happened to the people that had to go to those prison camps? What's the first thing they made them do?
Did they Jabberwocky them?
Yes.
Yep, that's the first thing they made them do.
My goodness.
Can you imagine?
No. No.
No. I'd say go ahead and just, do whatever you're going to do to me, because I'm not taking it.
Yeah.
Well, apparently they just hold you down and give it to you.
No, that's true too. That's awful.
So they don't want that news to get out that there's people are being forced. And anybody who watched those videos from there know that the people that are being treated that way didn't break up anything, didn't do anything but sing songs and pray, and that's what happened to them. That's why when we were in the chats and we had some liberals come in, remember, Nikki?
Yes. Well, they weren't.
We had three.
They weren't liberals. But go ahead.
Yeah, we had three of them come in, and I ended up axing one of them, and the other two I was asking very direct questions in a polite way, but I was asking them, if you remember, do you want that to happen to people that go to school, little people that go to school? Do you want them to keep having that kind of stuff happen to them? Whose side are you going to be on? And they didn't break the rules and curse me, and they didn't, so even if I got one out of the three to think about it and then read the paper about Lisa Marie,
Yeah. All right. Looks like Ken M has a question for you. Will doctors or coroners ever come out with that and then mainstream media about what you're talking about?
Well, I brought up, I think yes, because they're going to have to. And I brought up the reason why last night, and I brought this up in, I think, two prior videos about a half a year ago. Something called the Truth and Reconciliation Act. I don't know if that's a PEAD, PEAD, and I know you all know, but for people that are viewing that don't know, that's called a Presidential Emergency Action Document. Okay? It's an executive order that the nuts and bolts of it is truth and reconciliation means just that it's ordered by the president that the truth has to be put out, and so our nation can reconcile and heal. And that's what I talked about half a year ago, 3 months ago. One of the people I was talking about was Merrick Garland. He may be participating to carry out that emergency action directive, or if it's just a regular executive order, to bring the truth out and get our nation to reconcile. Because as I said, the left needs a hero too. We just can't come out of this where everybody gets proven wrong. We laugh in everybody's face and hoist Donald Trump up on our shoulders and have however many percent of this country feeling that they've been screwed over. When people know the truth, we can reconcile.
We've been feeling like that for 2.5 years.
Huh?
I said, we've been feeling like we've been screwed over for 2.5 years.
Well, we've been getting, this whole country's been getting screwed over for a lot longer than that. And ever since in our lifetimes, or many of the people in my lifetime, many people in chats, I don't know about everybody, but starting with Nixon taking away the gold standard and putting us on petrodollar. But it goes before that. It goes to when they shot Kennedy. I remember the day he was shot. Anybody that was around that time and knows exactly what they were doing. And before that, when Franklin Roosevelt started the Great Society, and before that, after the Titanic sunk, they started doing taxing personal property or personal wealth. And this country never did that. You never had to file income taxes and tell somebody what you've been doing that quarter of the year. What have you been up to? How much you made? Where's my cut? We never had to do that.
Yeah.
So we've been suffering for a long time. And this isn't just to take care of the current creepos that are in Congress and the current things they're making us do. We've been taking adverse things into our bodies, not just what we're talking about now. It's something that's isolated and they're pushing. But before that, when they started telling us eggs were bad for us, they're telling us butter was bad for us. They're telling us salt's bad for us. And then, oh, wait a minute, guess what? We made some stuff you can buy instead of what God gave you. So we've been ingesting and taking things that have been harmful to us for a long time.
Oh,
Just now,
sure.
there's a big push.
All right, chat. You got any questions for Mountain Man? Fire away. Just be careful how you word it. If you got to use some keywords.
I see now you have the questions highlighted in blue, right? Okay.
No,
I didn't
that's
know
my
that. Now I
banner.
can see what's going on. Whoops.
Oh, I don't have anything highlighted in blue right now. I don't.
Yeah, your last question, I saw it highlighted in blue. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Because I pulled it up on the screen, which I don't think you see it that way.
Red said his entire childhood was based on Evel Knievel. Do you know how many garage roofs I jumped off of?
Yeah. How many dirt piles my brothers would jump over with their bikes, being Evel Knievel.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're in that age group. We're in that age group, and when we talk amongst ourselves, we think, we all agree, we all understand, because we're of a certain generation and age group. Yeah. But when you talk to somebody in their 40s, 30s, 20s, and this is all mature voting age people, they have no idea what you're talking about, And it took me a while to get used to it, where I would see somebody, in their 30s, and I would say something about Archie, like an Archie Bunker style joke, and they would be totally lost. And I would think it was so funny, or Milton Berle or Jack Benny. Like you borrow somebody's pen and you pretend you're going to stick it in your pocket and you say, I was getting ready to pull a Jack Benny on you. They got no idea what you're talking about. But if I'm talking to somebody from my own generation, they know.
Yeah.
You never gave Jack Benny your pen because you'd never get it back.
Yeah.
Because he was cheap.
I wanted to ask you one other question. I was in my mid to late teens when that whole Watergate went down with Nixon. Now, my mother was a registered Democrat. And of course, Edmund Muskie, senator up here in Maine, was involved in, I think they went and they put out like a flyer saying his wife was crazy and this and that. But anyway, I know they got Nixon out and put Gerald Ford in there. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy person, but I'm not quite following why they did that to get Ford in there. Was it so that he would lose to Carter?
Well, you were talking about Edwin Muskie, and that was when he cried, right?
Yes, because they attacked his wife. Yes.
They attacked his wife and they cried, and immediately the press, he cried when he was talking about how much they hurt his wife.
Yes.
And right away, the press put on there that he was too emotionally unstable to be president, and yeah, I think it was a coordinated knockout job to keep him from being president. And
Yes.
Edwin Muskie happens to be one of the names I mentioned when I say the Democratic Party we're looking at right now is nothing like it was in the 60s and 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s. It is totally been taken over by truly radical people that have something wrong with their brains. And
Yes.
Edwin Muskie is one of the ones. Hubert Humphrey,
Yeah.
gosh, you know them. If your mother was a Democrat, you know the names. And
Yes.
these people would be spinning in their graves if they saw what was going on with their party right now. And there are people who are Democrats that way that don't know where to go. They don't want to be like Ilhan Omar. They don't want to be like AOC. But where do they go? And that's why I brought up the Truth and Reconciliation Act as to where the left gets to have some heroes. And why they put Gerald Ford in there, nobody at the time really could put two and two together. He was a senator from Michigan, nobody had heard of. But who got the vice presidential slot was Rockefeller. And who was the Secretary of State and the acting vice president through much of this stuff, who is still on a board on the Department of Defense, Henry Kissinger. And they're all part, and so was Gerald Ford, part of these secret societies. And none of us knew that stuff then. No. But they did a hatchet job on Edwin. He was a good man.
Yeah. And, Edwin,
And like my old shop teacher used to say, one good woman's all a good man needs. So yeah, he got upset when his wife was hurt. It brought him to tears very briefly. And they destroyed him over that.
Oh, they said he was unhinged. He couldn't be a president. Gerald Ford was in the society too?
Gerald Ford was brought up specifically by Madison Marquette as someone who took advantage of her.
Oh boy. Okay.
It goes deep, Diamond. It goes deep.
I was gonna say, Nikki, I've got to brace myself because I think a lot of these names that we're gonna hear is really gonna hit a chord with me.
Oh, it's going to hit a chord with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Now, Mountain Man, you have said before, tell me if I'm wrong. Didn't you say Ronald Reagan was too?
No. They said Ronald Reagan was, he's been accused of being at the Bohemian Grove. And let me tell you, there's some footage from the Bohemian Grove.
Oh, you muted yourself.
You can pull up on YouTube now. And the Bohemian Grove is an odd kind of thing because it's the footage they were showing was this owl, and they were singing or preaching this song about the absence of care, and with an infant on stage and stuff. There were people sitting like in an auditorium. And not an outdoor auditorium. I mean, rows and rows of chairs, all kinds of people watching this performance. The Bohemian Grove is a little bit separate from the Moloch and the Baal and the this and that. The owl is a symbol of a secret society. We've seen how DC is laid out. I showed a picture of that in one of my live streams, aerial view of the Capitol. And then where the owl is outlined in there. So it's like anything else, these secret societies. I talked to Red one time and I said, you've got anything from Fred and Barney being part of the Loyal Order of Water Buffaloes to up to these other more demonic things that I've talked about. I mean, I was a member of the Lions Club. I was a member of whatever Theta Kappa when I was in college. I never went to anything to do with it, but it doesn't mean that I was, involved in anything. Certainly not, frat parties or anything like that. So, for them to, there's no doubt that Ronald Reagan grabbed the steering wheel and put this country back on the right track. No doubt. And so they can say this and that about him. He's dead and gone. They've tried to malign him through the Iran-Contra, pimple on a mule's behind, and they've tried to say he was riddled with dementia. And I've said after his presidency, he did a live interview with Larry King. He did a live interview with Peter Jennings. He did in his last week, I believe it was, in the Oval Office, he did a interview with 4 different journalists that was taped and unrehearsed. Can you imagine Joe Biden dealing with 1 journalist, much less 4 sitting in a semicircle asking him questions? He had no idea what the questions were going to be, and Ronald Reagan handled it fine. So, no, he didn't have dementia when he was going to die. When he was, he didn't have dementia until he got close to a death. But during his presidency, he was very sharp. And Iran-Contra, that is such a joke if you compare what he was accused with, what's going on in Biden and Ukraine. It's a joke. So I get a little passionate about Reagan because he did step in at a time when we really needed good leadership. And he's always been pro-life, and they just didn't know how to handle him. They had to wait Ronald Reagan out to get back on their plan.
I've got a few things. Hello America says, I had a photo of Richard Nixon and Reagan discussing who will run for president first at the Bohemian Grove. It's not a question, but it's a statement from
Red. That's fine. Richard Nixon was a good man, and he was intimidated, bullied, and they eventually got him. I guarantee if they hadn't done the impeachment of him, they'd if it wasn't so soon after Kennedy, that's what they would have done. I think Nixon was a good man, and I know Ronald Reagan was a good man. And the Bohemian Grove, other than them being secretive and having an owl there, and somebody has some footage of people dressed in, Carhartt jackets and whatever. I mean, just regular people. They were like watching an outside theater show. The Bohemian Grove is nothing compared to the Black Forest in Europe, nothing compared to the Moloch statue, nothing compared to the Baal statue, none of that. It's not even comparable. I'm not saying there isn't evil people in that, but tell me what's come out of the Bohemian Grove instead of a bunch of grown-ups acting like fools in the woods.
All right. Jamie Babursky is asking, Mountain Man, do you see by Dan, moron, still being in office come March?
Well, I tell you, for me to prognosticate, do I see Biden being in till March?
No.
Yeah,
till March. Yep.
Well, they've said that the original Constitution had a different date than January 20th. I think it was March 3rd. It's I think purposely clouded as to what's going to happen, because like Trump said, you never let your opponent know what you're going to do. There's so many options, and the real crossing point is January 20th. Now that it is past January 20th, 2 years, if Trump were to somehow get in, he would still be eligible for another 4-year term. So that's why it's not a big deal that he announced his candidacy for 2024, because if they put him in tomorrow, he'd be eligible to run for 2024. So it's hard to say. Biden I was thinking about doing a thumbnail about one of my videos, a picture of Biden with one of his goofy smiles saying, call me crazy, because I think he's going to want them to call him crazy when everything comes out, because it's either that or serious criminal charges. And Trump has offered him the olive branch. He said, I honestly think Joe is out of his mind. I honestly think Joe has a mental issue. So that is word from the top that Biden has a pass to at least not suffer, to get tucked away in some little island jail or something. He lost his mind. And I don't, whatever happens, but I cannot see in Biden's mental state and given his age that he can last much longer. And we've been told that they're going to try to slip one in. They're going to try. How do you slip one in? That was in one of the posts. And you look back at history, how did they slip Gerald Ford in? You think about Nixon, a third-rate burglary he didn't even know about. They got rid of his vice president because there was a controversy over a lousy $10,000 on a tax form. And those accusations are so ridiculous in today's climate. But that's the template they might use. Kamala Harris been awful quiet, had she?
Oh yeah. Robin Ward says, Mountain Man, Nixon allowed 68% of our national parks and heritage sites to be used by other countries. So
yeah, Robin, I meant to message you earlier. Thank you so much for helping me out earlier with the on Buy Me a Coffee, Robin. But I wanted to say that you have to understand that a lot of things Nixon did, I think he was threatened. I think he was pick one, extorted, blackmailed, threatened, whatever they could use. And a lot of things he did were to move this NWO plan forward that were against his better judgment. And when they were finished with him, they got rid of him. And you think about what he did, taking away gold. That's exactly what the European central banks wanted. Opening up to China. That's exactly what the NWO wanted. They made it seem like China was some mystery place nobody had ever dealt with or been to. And thanks to Nixon, they opened up the mysterious gates and we started doing business with the mysterious Chinese. That's a bunch of hooey. The British were in China for decades, over 100 years. Look up the Opium Wars. We were dealing, my dad had stuff from China back in the 50s and 60s, way before Nixon opened up to China. So what that did was it turned a communist slave labor force open, where we could reap the benefits, and the NWO Europeans could reap the benefits of slave labor and disrupt our economy and infiltrate and introduce communist ideology farther out into the world. So if Nixon knew the ramifications of it, I want to remind everybody, I do not think, Rob and I agree. I agree with what you're saying. He did the Clean Air Act, which caused a lot of problems, which is worthless today with catalytic converters on cars. He did a lot of stuff, but I think he was under tremendous pressure. And the point being that if Nixon knew what was going to happen, and one of the last things, see if you remember this, Robin, what was one of the last things Nixon did in his life? I'll tell you. He was he lost his wife, Pat Nixon. They even took a secret photograph of him grieving over his wife and splattered it on the Washington Post. It was terrible. I mean, he was obvious in anguish over losing Pat. And he looked terrible. And you don't do that to a mourning person, much less a former president. But anyway, he was in very poor health. And he went to Russia to try to talk to Boris Yeltsin before they got into the Minsk Accords, which is what Vladimir Putin keeps talking about to this day is what's being violated in Ukraine. I think he was trying to warn Boris Yeltsin about getting involved in something that would create what we're dealing with right now, which is a rogue semi-state that is being controlled by the NWO. Ukraine is not a country. It's a semi-state. It's never been a country. It's always been a territory of the Russian Federation or the Polish government. It's never been ever in history. So I think Nixon was trying to reach out to Boris Yeltsin. And as we know, people are going to look that up. I don't want to take too much time up about it, but he had a severe stroke, wink, wink, and he didn't survive it.
Can I move on to the next question?
Sure.
Okay. Question is, why and who sat in this sat on these documents that were found by the vet since November? The U.S. citizens need to demand this legitimate moron, Biden, is a risk to the American citizens and is incompetent. So
Right.
What do you think? Okay, so do you think that these documents were known about, which we've heard, right, in the Twitter drops, that
Yep.
they were known about before the midterm elections, correct?
Yes.
But they weren't put out publicly. Who was
Right.
holding these documents back?
Well, that would have to have been his own office staff and the Justice Department and the intelligence agency that already proved all of them were out to get Trump.
Okay, well, this is something needs to be done. So at this point, Mountain Man, what do you suggest? Is it time for the American people to stand up and start fighting back with our pens and papers and start filing lawsuits? I mean, where do we go from here? Because this isn't.
Well, the thing is,
corrupt.
We don't have a unified voice. We tried to have it with the Brunson thing, pointing out the verbiage in the Constitution, how it wasn't followed, and what the remedy was supposed to be, and what has happened. I feel. Yeah, well, we can all write letters. We can be indignant. We can demand this and that. But the bottom line is we have to have a lawful process. And all right, we've got the House now. And I think what's going to happen is a lot of the stuff that they're passing and a lot of the stuff they're going to be investigating, not all of it, but a lot of it is going to end up right in the lap of the Senate. And what's going to happen there is some of these closet rhinos, some of these people who have been rah-rah boom-bah for us, but have really been turning their backs on us, they're going to have to show their cards. And I don't know how long this process is going to be. I'd like to be able to say, they got a plan that on March 3rd, they're going to march in there and take out Biden because he had some secret document or he gave away something to China and the military stepped in and they're pointing Trump. I'd love to say that, but that would be irresponsible of me. But I'm not saying it wouldn't surprise me. If I woke up and read that in the paper, or that, a bunch of people got rounded up and arrested and this and that, no, it wouldn't surprise me at all. But I think Biden's got to go through he's got to take his beating. McCarthy had to take a beating in front of everybody. He did it willingly. He knew he had to go through it. But it was to get unity and control of the House. Now Biden's got to go through the ringer, and for our history's sake, for our nation's sake, we got to find a way. As people are saying, many people are saying, the Democrats themselves want to throw Biden under the bus right now.
Yeah.
So that's got to play out somehow. And wouldn't that be better for them to eat their own, for them to commit political harry-carry themselves, than for us to go in there and do it?
Yes. I have a question, Nikki. I just
Go
thought
ahead.
of one.
Mhm.
Mountain Man, what's your idea on the House is looking, or they're trying to pass the, is it the Fair Tax Act, where they're going to try and abolish the I to the R to the S? And I think it's a great idea. What are your thoughts on that?
I do too. I think it is a great idea, and you look at what a lot of people have noticed, and what I put in a past video, that even a federal judge said if anybody looks at the 16th Amendment objectively, they will see that it was not passed properly according to the Constitution. And that is where the amendment says they can tax individual income from any source to any amount. And you're thinking, what? So they can, that's slavery, where a government entity can take everything as much as they want. And wait a minute. Let's see, how long was that after the Civil War? 1916, 50 years? A lousy 50 years, am I right? Am I thinking right? 1865 plus...
Yep. 50 years would be 1915. Yeah.
Yeah, they replaced the slavery, pre-Civil War slavery. They replaced it with the ability to tax everybody.
Yeah. I remember back. Oh, go ahead.
I thought it was an awful big bite to take off the bat. And everybody now is in the culture is used to the IRS and thinks that paying taxes on your individual fruits of your own labor has always been the case. It has not.
Yeah.
That relative to history's eyes, this is a very new concept for this republic, and it's a repugnant concept.
Yeah.
And
Diamond, I got Hebrew Hammer up here. Hi, good afternoon or good evening to you, Hebrew.
Hello there, everybody. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom to you too.
Thank you. It's been a while.
Mountain Man, have you ever met Hebrew Hammer?
no, I haven't.
No,
Let me get
You're
back
gonna like
over-
him.
Let me get over to the screen. Out of comments. How you doing?
Roger that, sir. Doing pretty good on yourself.
I'm doing fine.
You've brought up some very interesting topics, and one of the most important topics that I heard you discuss thus far is the Minsk agreement. Okay?
Yes.
A lot of people really did not dive into that and what it's all about. Your expansion of NATO, when I say your, I'm saying it in pluralism, not in singularism. NATO, the expansion of NATO was a direct encroachment. It was a direct infraction of the Minsk agreement.
Sure.
And you were exactly right when you said Putin and Yeltsin were trying to back out of it politely without starting a war.
Well, Putin was very young when the Minsk agreements were signed. He was not as big a political force as he is now. It was Boris Yeltsin was the key, and I believe that was why Nixon was struggling so hard in the last months of his life to actually meet privately with Yeltsin.
Yes. There were channels.
I will be a little bit conspiratorial and say he had a stroke and lost his life and never did get to meet with Yeltsin.
Right. And that was a shame. And actually, Israel was going to facilitate that meeting in Oslo. And so we're looking at what's happening now in the United States. What's happening now is a direct result of things that have happened 25, 30, and maybe even 40 years ago. So we saw a very large expansion of the United States going out into the world and conducting what I call colonialism. And so the people that we have taken over are now fighting back. They've had enough of it. Okay. And we see this coming across the border right now, people from all over the world, not just one country. So the world's in bad shape right now. And what I would recommend for people to listen to is pull up Bibi Netanyahu's interview with the Fareed Zakaria on CNN. And he asked him what is his position on Russia. And I'm going to leave it at that. Y'all have got to watch what he said. He did it very, how do I want to say it, nonchalantly.
Well, go ahead and tell us.
Well, so basically he told the world that Israel and Russian planes are flying side by side over Syria. So he basically didn't come out and say, I'm against them, I'm for them, we're buddies, we're enemies. He didn't say that. He put it out there for the world to calculate it themselves.
Well, what I've calculated is that what's going on right now is a battle for our civilization. And the lines are already drawn. The partnerships have already been forged. And it's either we're going to have a future in a recognizable civilization or we're not. I think it's gotten to that point.
And I agree. I agree with that. And what I'd like to try to point out to people is in excuse me, not Genesis, but in Revelations, it explains to the people that it will be the end of the world as you know it.
Yep.
Not the end of the world, not the complete destruction, but it will be the end of the world as you know it. Okay? So we're starting to see these paradigm shifts of what we equate to childbirth. Right? All these new allies and all these new leaders are standing up. Look what they did to Bolsonaro down there in Brazil.
They're not finished.
Yes, sir.
They're not finished with him.
Yeah, he's in the hospital right now.
They want him back.
Oh yeah, they want him back. You know, and all those people that are locked up in concentration camps down there, it's unreal.
That's exactly the term. Exactly the term that the young person I was talking to from Brazil today, he used. Concentration camps. And that, as we know, should not be tossed around lightly.
No, not at all. And what it's going to take to get us through this is morally compass-driven individuals have got to speak up. We have got to take the reins in our hand. I used to live in North Florida. I'm in Texas now, but I'm originally out of Miami. When I was in North Florida, I lived in a small county of about 30,000 people, and I lived there for about 16 years before I decided to run for county commissioner. Okay? When a person that is on the opposite side of the spectrum of the government gets involved with the government, you know we are in dire straits.
Yeah.
I had no intention, zero intention to get involved with this government here in the United States, but I saw it was that bad that common individuals needed to stand up. Now, I'm not implying everybody run for office. It's not for everybody. But at the same time, confront these people, ask questions, be inquisitive. Don't just turn the other cheek, because the worst thing that happened in the Holocaust, that I talked to my grandfather, the worst thing in the Holocaust was when the women covered the eyes of the children. We have got to stop doing that, folks.
Well,
stop coddling these children.
That's like my dad said, after 9/11, he said, well, the day it happened, there was footage of people jumping out of the buildings. He said, they're not showing that footage. And I said, well, I guess it upsets people too much. And Dad said, well, they need to show it.
That's right.
The people jumping out for their own lives. And I'm nobody's ever said that 9/11 didn't happen. It's how it happened. And that's anybody that's done a little bit of research can have doubt about the big story. We don't have to get into that in detail, but to just know that we were snookered.
Well, just look at the name. Just look at the name without any background stories, or just look at the name. World Trade, not the London Exchange, not the Nikkei, not the other stuff over there in Europe. Okay, World Trade. So let's give you an example. Let's say my country owes your country so much money I can never repay it, and you're about to enslave my people. Okay, you're about to take my country over. Now, how do I get out of this? What do? Is I get rid of the evidence that I owe you money. That's what that was. It was getting rid of evidence that was so voluminous it would have changed the United States forever.
Sure.
For the worse. Oh yeah. So that was what we Jews call, it was a robbery. Let's put it that way.
A robbery.
Agreed.
That's a good analogy, a robbery.
So
what can we do as citizens, though, Hebrew? Do you have any suggestions that we can do as we're sitting here on YouTube, just whining every day about our country?
We're not whining. We're teaching others, and we're learning ourselves.
Well,
Exactly.
I understand that, but you know what I mean. But a lot of people just whine about it, but I want to know what we can do. What actions can we take as citizens without being in trouble?
Well, we're going to expand first on the inside the parameter of the laws, which are the Constitution. Okay.
Right.
What remedies do we have lawfully? Okay. So prepare yourselves, prepare your families, collect your goods, your services, learn a skill that you can provide when all of this goes down. Okay. You can't stop it. There's nothing we can do to stop it. Okay. But what we can do is prepare or cushion for the blow. And just like Mr. Mountain Man just said, by passing information. Yeah. What good is the information? What good is the knowledge if you don't have the wisdom to decipher the knowledge? Right? So this is what people do. They come out and they hand people the information. You do with it what you please. But all I can say is, get your house in order. This is going to get ugly.
Well, what I was thinking about earlier was an analogy. I was talking to somebody. I said, my audience that tunes in my broadcasts are sophisticated. Okay, I will say sophisticated, and because they know about many of the things, MK, and the other part is Ultra, Operation Mach, and then Mach the bird. Okay. We all know about that. We all know about the 17 letter. We know about many of the things that we've discussed right now. So what we are competent chess players. Okay, I'm using analogies. People say Trump is playing 3D. Now they're even up to 5D chess. Okay, so take that analogy and realize, through no fault of their own, people just trying to live their lives, work their jobs, raise their families, they can play a really daggone good game of checkers. But they're not even at the level of playing chess. So when you think of Trump playing 5D chess, okay, that's a good analogy. It's a lot of different things, a lot of different boards, a lot of different countries. It's all tied together. But then you take it even mentally a step further. There's not just ebony pieces and ivory pieces, okay? There's pieces that are gray on the board. There are pieces that are translucent, glass pieces. So you're talking a mental exercise and a kinetic exercise that's way beyond what we're able to do, but we're much farther ahead than our well-meaning fellow country people and family members that can play a really daggone good game of checkers. Okay, that's where we're at, and we got to get them to understand how to play chess. Okay. And that's what it's about. That's why I go on sometimes, and I try to keep my broadcasts under an hour, but I've gone on for 2 hours. I've been on with Nikki for 4 hours.
Yeah.
To try to explain the game of chess. I mean, I can't go 3D chess. I can't go 5D chess with multicolored pieces, but there are people who can. And this has been going on a long time. We're not going to straighten it out overnight. And the last thing we need to do is try to do something on our own outside the boundaries of the law.
I agree.
It's being handed to us. It's like Trump said, 2 years, look how fast 2 years went by. And he's right. Look how far it went by. And they do everything they can to blunt our enthusiasm, everything they can to make us think we're losing. But the bottom line was, after this election, that they said the red wave was a red puddle. Yeah, well, tell that to Nancy as she's walking out the door. Tell that to Adam Schiff as he's going to bed at night wondering if he's going to get arrested. Okay? We've taken over the House. We've taken over the initiative. And if I don't know where Merrick Garland stands, I can bet you the Black Hats don't know where he stands either. We've infiltrated their operation. I know that 100%.
No doubt. No doubt at all.
And this has got to stand the test of time. This has got to be written in the history book, something that would be an amazing story, a noble story. Not people dragging the local mayor out with pitchforks. This has got to be something where not your average awakening, not a scary awakening, not a great awakening. And that's what we've got to do. And if freedom was easy, everybody in the world would have it. And nobody right now understands. As they wave their Ukraine flags, they put the Ukraine emojis on their social media sites. Our own neighbor in South America, Brazil. Right now, those people are being persecuted and subjugated into a communist life. And a lot of them are going to lose their lives, and a lot of them are going to end up in jail for a long time until we get there to rescue them. And it's people say, well, people are suffering right now. People are suffering right now. I know they are. Just like Winston Churchill knew that London was going to be bombed and there would be people losing their lives, going home with their groceries, and then 1 second blown up the next. But he had to keep his mouth shut, because if he said London is going to get bombed tonight, he would have spilled the beans that we cracked the Germans' Enigma secret messaging code. So he had to pour himself a drink, shed some tears, and keep his mouth shut. And sure enough, I think 2,000 people died that night. Right. This is war.
Mountain Man, why do you think Ray went to Davos?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Why do you think Ray went to Davos?
Ray is another interesting person. A lot of people say, well, he's run the FBI terrible. He's done this, he's done that. Do you think it's best to have the FBI totally operated by total black hats? Do you think there wouldn't be somebody in there to take a pulse, to report back, to gather evidence, to take names, check it twice, as I've said before? That might be Ray.
Are you on the line?
I think those are two to watch, is Garland and Ray. One of the last posts from the 17th letter said, Patriots in trusted positions. So I wouldn't discount Ray. And looking at his literal statements, he called AZOV battalion. They designated them as a NAZI group and against the law to give them any aid.
That's right. Actually, there were 4 groups that were named in that issuance.
Right. Antifa was one of them.
Yeah, that was the main. That's the main group. That's it.
Right. So it's what he does and his literal words. Just like when people were on Lindsey Graham and saying he said that he wished the Patriots got shot. Or no, he didn't. He said, I wish the people that were tearing this building up and did what they did to this building, he said, I would SHOT them in the back of the head. But right away, all the knee-jerk people start saying, oh, Lindsey Graham said that about the Patriots. No, he didn't. You can replay it. So, they throw rocks at people, but it takes good actors to make a good movie.
That's right.
And you got to remember what's the oversight of all of this? And this is a key I keep forgetting to bring up. I brought it up in one of my broadcasts. This has happened before. What needs to present itself? What needs to be shown before MI, military intelligence, can take over the other three agencies, which we all know? One starts with F, one starts with a C. Okay, one starts with a D. So what has to present itself? Well, it already happened after Martin Luther King was assassinated, and I read how many members of military intelligence were dispatched and what they were doing covertly on American soil because there had been an emergency declared by the president that allowed the military to get involved. It's already happened back in the 60s, and I think it is happening right now. And who's overseeing Christopher Wray going to Davos? I guarantee you the military's watching him.
That's why they dispatched 5,000 Swiss troops into the Davos region.
Oh, yeah. Well, you remember when Trump went there, he landed with a bunch of Apache helicopters and a Marine contingent. And it was said before he went, he was going in the Viper's Den. And if they wanted to do something to get rid of Trump, that's when they would have tried it. But he showed up with such I'm going to say it, a majestic presence. He made him wait. He showed up late, and he showed up like a boss. And he told him what the way it was going to be. Right to George Soros's face.
Do you remember the body mannerisms after the meeting when everybody come out and they had the photo ops and you could see everybody's facial expressions, what just happened in there? Because there are no minutes, actual minutes.
Yeah, they weren't happy, were they?
No, they weren't happy at all. So this is from a Jewish perspective. The Jewish perspective is that he went into the temple and he kicked the tables over. That's what we interpret it.
That's right.
I'm not trying to make a comparison of him being, Christ. What I'm trying to say is that he did the right thing. He went in there, he showed the world and exposed all of the Davos operatives. The guy in Canada, the woman in Germany. We try not to mention everybody's names. But at the same time, it's amazing. It's utterly amazing that we see the coalitions forming that we would never in 1,000 years think that these people would come together. There are Muslims, Christians, and Jews fighting in trenches right now in Ukraine against Nazis.
That's right. That's right. That a lot of people, and I was kind of, I shouldn't bring him up, but Sebastian Gorka, he usually, rings true with a lot of things he said, and I go, yay. But then when he was saying there was that presence was purged from the Ukrainian army, I'm like, wait a minute, where are you coming from? Because no, they're there.
They're there.
Big time. They're there big time. And what was going on with Ukraine, what is going on with Ukraine, a mini example was Cuba. Okay. Mm-hmm. The mafia tried to basically get control of a country where they could do whatever the heck they wanted and be out of reach of the U.S. justice system. And that's exactly what Nixon was trying to warn Yeltsin about was going to happen to Ukraine. That was going to be the criminal empire of Europe. That was going to be their Cuba. And it is their Cuba. But the mafia got thrown off track because of Castro. And I think the Cuban people would have been better off under the mafia.
I believe so.
It's like they used to say in New York when the mafia ran New York back in the 40s and 50s. At least you could walk down the street. Because if you caused trouble in the neighborhood, you had Vito and Guido to deal with.
I have a question for both of you, Hebrew,
ma'am.
Hammer, and Mountain Man, but I want you guys to, Hebrew, you go first. What do you think the deal is with having these borders wide open? What is your thoughts on that?
Okay, so people are familiar with the movie Red Dawn and what's behind, not the visual effect, but the idea behind Red Dawn, okay? What we are witnessing here on this southern border is nothing short than a United Nations Agenda 2130 invasion. That's exactly what it is. It was written in 1992 in Brazil and brought to you by George Bush Sr.
Wow.
What we're seeing happened in 1992 that was signed on to is happening right here in front of our eyes. Does anybody remember in front of the United Nations building when they put that revolver up there with the twisted barrel? They put a big statue. They got a big statue in New York in front of the United Nations building. It's a huge, big statue. And it's a revolver with a barrel twisted up in a knot. Okay? What they're telling the Americans is this war that's coming ain't going to be done with guns. It's not going to be done with guns. So from my gathering, this is an invasion and nothing short. Not all of the people that are coming across that border are bad. Not all.
Right.
But I would give you a good 80% that are military age men, and they're here for a reason.
Yeah, well, it makes me think of one of Trump's at the rallies. He said we were going to have to start thinking about something he never thought about, thought he would have to think about, was mass deportations. And that was, a good 6 months ago. And so he's not shy about he's not saying what I'd like to have happen. What he's saying gonna happen. And when he says when I take office, and I have to remind everybody that if people were paying attention to the 17th letter, we have to get to a precipice. People don't change. People are not going to pay attention to who's running their local governments. They're not going to pay attention to how we got here and how to prevent it from happening again until their own ox is getting gored. And I'm not trying to minimize anybody who's suffering, because some people suffer quite a bit more than others with this punch in the arm and economically. But overall, the majority of this country has not felt the effects. And
what are your thoughts? Why do you think the borders are wide open?
Why do I think the borders are wide open? Because Biden, Ilhan Omar, AOC, all the anti-constitutionalists that want to create or assist in a NWO want to destroy the foundations of the country. And it's more votes. It's more criminality. We know what happened to Seth, and his last name's Rich, because and that's going to come out. That was an MS-13 gang. They're recruiting these gang members. Like I talked about the mafia. Do you think the mafia would have played ball with this stuff? You know, as bad as they were, they had family. You didn't come home and say you don't know what way you were born and you want to change how you were born. I mean, I'm not trying to glorify or justify the evilness of organized crime, but that's why I was saying Ukraine or Cuba and Ukraine would be better off for an old school mafia to be running it than what's running it now. So they want to tear down civilization. I mean, that's what they're talking about. The Georgia Guidestones talks about it. AOC talks about it.
But me as an American citizen sitting here, I'm like, how are we just sitting here watching this happen? Why aren't we doing something?
It was happening way before Donald Trump came along.
Okay.
And like I said, how many people
to it.
It's like I said, be honest, everybody in the chats, right this minute, without Googling, without looking anything up, how many can name the person who is their state representative of their district in their state, at their state legislature, not who's in Congress in DC. How many people in chats know who their representative is? How many people even know who their board of supervisor is? How many people even know what district they live in?
I do.
You do, but I'm saying in the chats. Or anybody who watches this program afterwards. Be honest. Because they run your life.
Yeah, directly, the local government has more direct effect on your daily life than any state or federal level.
All politics is local. All politics is local.
That's right.
And
so,
how many people know who their school board? Every school board represents a district. If you don't even know what district you live in, you can't tell me you know who your school board representative is.
I know who a lot of them are.
Something as basic as that. Something as basic as that. But I tell you, when this is over with, and it might take 2 years, it might take a year, and something might happen tomorrow. But I'll tell you, when this is all over with, people better know.
And never forget.
Right.
And never not know again.
Right. We created this system of government. And people don't even know how to use it. Don't care. But in their defense, it's just like the 17th letter said, they've been saddled with an economic system that keeps them on a treadmill, where when they're done doing the exercising physical and mental activity to make sure they have a car, make sure they have a house paid for and their lights cut on, they are too tired to worry about anything else. And that's mama and papa. And that's by design, so they don't have time or energy to keep up with these criminals.
Right. I agree with you. It is designed in that sense where it metastasizes the effect so far away that we can't grasp it. Where most people say, I could never become a county commissioner. Well, that's what I thought until I actually did it.
It's the essence. It's the essence of debt slavery. To keep you taking all of your precious time, as I've said many times in my broadcast, your precious time, every minute and second is precious. And you're out there spending that precious time to service a debt, whether it's car loans, house loan, never mind that, your property taxes, your income taxes. And I'll tell you, when they really broke through was during George Bush. I'll never forget that representative when George Bush was walking down, I think it was after the State of the Union. He was walking through with all the House members, and one of them grabbed his hand and said to him, how can you get a rebate if you've never baited? And George Bush looked at him weird, and the guy repeated, how do you get a rebate when you've never baited? And George Bush pulled his hand away, laughed, and kept on going, shaking hands, walking away. But what he said was very true. That was when they approved this business of an earned income, quote, tax credit. You've got people right now. I can tell you people right now that haven't worked for decades, have a passel of kids. Some of them even been convicted of drug offenses, are totally dependent on the government and have been for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Every year they get a check for like $12,000, $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 and never paid in. They started this business of like Oprah, you get a car, you get a car, everybody gets a tax rebate, whether they paid taxes or not. That is when they destroyed the final destruction to where they could come in and do what they're doing right now.
Isn't that what Colonel Davy Crockett said? Isn't that what he went up in front of the federal government and he said, why should we give an individual, at that time the question was $20,000. That's a lot of money back then, right? So the guy, Crockett says, why should we give any money to an individual? It does not better the community. Okay, and then they end up giving that money to that individual. It was a widow of, I can't remember the guy's name, some widow he was going to give the money to. So when he went back and talked with his constituents to, ask people to re-vote for him, and his constituents told him, no, we're not going to vote for you again because you gave money away that didn't belong to you. So he went back to the federal government and he explained to people that when we give money, what I recommend is that we take money from each and individual up here and donate it from our own free will instead of using the government as a donation process. Okay? Because it has gone so far, again, I'm going to use the word robbery. It's a robbery.
Well, yeah. Even when FDR signed the New Deal, he said that he wanted Social Security to be structured so that a person could say that I am receiving something that I paid into. Right. Okay, that was adamant on his part. And of course, we see how that's been. I mean, you've got people that no speaky, they come over here and they got a house, they got a car, they got a monthly check, and they no speaky, they've done nothing. And I'm not picking on one entity, but they've done nothing to contribute to society or the American experience. And just because somebody else wants to be nice. And hey, I hear a lot of these young people, like Tim Pool and Sticks Hexenhammer and stuff like this, talking about a universal income. Okay, if you're going to have a country and you've got citizens of that country, and no, we don't want people to be starving in the streets. No, we don't want people to be living in bushes because things bad have happened to them. I don't have a problem with a nation pulling together to help people to make sure that no one ends up in that way. But then you walk that fine line. When are you enabling crackheads? When are you enabling people to come over illegally? When are you enabling sloth? And there's an answer somewhere that I'm sure they've already come up with that's going to be implemented in what I feel is going to be our new republic.
Well, you're right with that. And in my opinion, on the on the income, universal income, that was tried once before in 1934. Okay, I'm pretty sure you have read the Nuremberg Proclamations. Yeah. Not the Nuremberg trials, but the proclamations. Okay, so inside the proclamations, you have universal health care and you have universal subsidy. Okay, that was their phrase, subsidy. So they couldn't reuse the word subsidy here, and they have to call it universal income. Okay, we've tried that before, and look where it took us. Okay, a universal income gives and builds incentives, like what you just said. We'll coin that phrase, sloth. That's what that creates. It creates sloth. Okay, so I'm adamantly against the social income of that measure. Now we should have programs in place where qualified people, and when I mean qualified people, meaning the people that are not on drugs, that are not raping and robbing and pillaging, not felons, things of that nature. Because there are people out there who truly need help.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah, I'm just going through the chat. So many have gone by while I was talking.
Yeah, 29.
Hi, Jeff. How you doing? Jeff used, how many Ys did he use? He used 1, 2, 3, 4. I think he used about 7 Y, 8
Oh, that's Jeff Riddle. Oh boy.
The concept of New World Order was why America was created. Oh, John, he's coming up with something. On the back of the dollar bill, words literally translate as New World Order. Own equals own.
Annuit susceptus novus ordo seclorum, announcing the beginning of the New World Order.
Wow.
When was that version of the dollar adopted?
That's a good question. It had to be after 1914.
John
Yeah,
Dennis,
I mean-
do you know the answer to that question?
Well, the precept of the statement was that America was created to build a new world order.
Right, and I'm glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that, because we look at the Hebrew commandments, and the first commandment says to know that God exists. Not to know in your mind, but to know in your soul that God exists. Because without that, you cannot interpret the rest of the commandments. Okay.
Right.
The second commandment says, thou shalt not worship any other God than I, singular, not plural. But God is not expressing that there are no other gods. You just can't believe in them but I. So on the back of the dollar, you see, in God we trust. Whose God?
That's right.
Whose God?
It's true. We just had a conversation the other day that, some people, they talk about God, but we don't know what God they're talking about.
Exactly.
So I take it from this that the spirit of 1776 and the 13 years between when we finally wrote a constitution, all that was pre-planned to create a new world order. Is that what I'm hearing? I'm just asking. Valley Forge, crossing the Delaware, all that stuff happened.
I don't think so. Okay, because I believe that the original concept of America or the United States was from an isolationist idea. They were isolationists.
Exactly.
They were not globalist, right? So by being isolationist, they weren't a part of any other aperture. We had treaties, but we were not a part of an aperture. So I don't think that this country in its concept, in its beginning, was global, because they've made that declaration that we are isolationists. So I think somewhere along the line, I believe right before the first Civil War, we're in the second Civil War now, but the first Civil War, where, most people say that the war was over slavery. It was not. Had nothing to do with slavery. It had to do with taxes. Okay. So the southern states were being taxed without representation. And that's exactly why the South lifted their arms. It was over taxes. Slavery didn't come into the latter part of the war. And Lincoln himself said it. You can look it up. If I could end the war without freeing the slaves, I will do so. So I think right before the Civil War is where we saw the transition of going into globalism. Who did we invite in? We invited the Hessians, we invited the French, the British. I mean, they had people from all places of the world fighting here in the Civil War. So we Jews actually call that the First World War. The First World War was, right.
Well, the point of George Washington being adamant about not having a title of royalty, I agree with you in the beginning. As far as this nation is concerned, it was isolationist. It didn't want problems with the rest of the world. That did not change until Woodrow Wilson got us involved in World War I.
Well, that would be the pen. That would be the pen to paper. You know what I mean? Changing, but the idea and the concept and the initializing the ideas and concepts was right before World War II. Civil War. But Woodrow Wilson, he put it pen to paper. He actually signed our rights away when he did that.
Yeah. Woodrow Wilson was one of the biggest disasters, and he admitted that practically on his deathbed.
That's true.
I had in one of my videos a statement he made where he said he felt he single-handedly destroyed the spirit of this country.
Right.
And he was referring to the 16th Amendment, which was where they could tax the individual as much as they want from whatever source.
So the New World Order concept comes from the Hadith, and you have what's called the 1,000 points of light. I'm pretty sure some are familiar with that phrase.
Yeah.
Even Bush Sr. himself said it. There's videos of him saying it. He announced it from the Oval Office. A new world order. We're coming from 1,000 points of light. When he said that, my grandfather, when he was still alive, ripped the TV off the wall and threw it across the room. He said, "That's it. We're done. We're done."
Wow. Well, I just don't think that the original Revolutionary War, I don't think Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, I don't think they had any idea or notion to be involved in a new world order.
No, I don't believe so either. They
All
still
of their
had
writings go straight to individual liberty, and the only one that was really pushing for some kind of an economic world order, by, in his words, attracting moneyed people to invest in the U.S., was Alexander Hamilton. And he wasn't a new world orderist. He was just looking at the finances of the country in a different way. And Jefferson hated his guts, and Aaron Burr ended up shooting him.
Right.
Well,
So to say that America was founded for a new world order, I'm not on board with that statement.
No, I don't agree with that either. It may have ended up that way, but it didn't start that way.
No.
I have a question. It's actually an intelligent question from Jeff Riddle, if you can believe it.
Wow.
Wasn't 1,000 points of light put on the World Trade Center?
Bingo.
Yeah.
Are you not seeing the correlations? Just for one moment, brief interruption. In the back chat there, I put some information for you three to get there.
Okay, thank you. Let's see.
Well,
And don't laugh. Don't laugh when you see it, please.
Oh,
yeah, I'm not. I see a lot of comments about the Bible. Honey had mentioned some stuff about NWO in the Bible. The earlier comment that the U.S. was created to foster an NWO. I understand where those concerns come from, but I feel the spirit of independence, 1776, many of the main players involved, you might have had some people involved that had ulterior motives, but for Ben Franklin, John Hancock, John Adams, many of the famous names, all of their writings are completely antithetical to any kind of a new world order or titles of principalities or monarchies or royalty of any kind. So the spirit of 1776 was not about a new world order. But you look how we've been hijacked. It's been hijacked. And somebody I saw in there, B-Dog, said the NAZIS, he spelled it different, never surrendered, and that's the truth. The Wehrmacht surrendered, the German army, but never any representative of that mindset. And my mother, I can remember her shaking her head or sometimes even laughing. about Kissinger, his thick, heavy German accent. And he is a major player and was one of the men in black suits that picked the president back in the 70s with Gerald Ford.
Are you asking us to guess who it was?
Gerald Ford.
Oh, I thought you were.
I said Gerald Ford, but it might not have picked
Oh,
it up.
no, you did say Gerald Ford. I heard that, but I thought, never mind. All right, does anybody got any more questions? Because we got some really good people on panel here to answer questions. Thank you guys so much. You guys have been awesome. I learned so much from you guys tonight.
Yes, I've been quiet, which is unusual for me, because I have enjoyed I mean, you've been telling me things I had no idea.
I'm trying, Jeff. I'm trying to pay attention.
Well, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take for people to divulge this information and get it out there, for people to disseminate it at their own accord. Okay, under Hebrew law, I can never tell another man or a woman what to do. I can only tell you what I would do.
Right.
So my purpose and what I believe my purpose is to ring that bell and get that information and knowledge out there. That I'm limited in what I can do. I still maintain a Q clearance, so I'm very limited in what I can do. But common knowledge can be passed, and people need to hear it, whether they like it or not, whether they agree with it or not. They have to hear it. And the reason why I say it like that is because when, not if, but when we take this country back, now we've got to go to The Hague. And we've got to prove to the world that we did it lawfully. Because if we don't, we're going to have every Russian, Chinese, everybody in the world is going to come and take a piece of this country. So we've got to do it legally and lawfully, file it with The Hague once we're done, to put the evidence on the table and said we did everything according to the law. And that is exactly what Russia's doing. Why do you think the Europeans haven't walked to Moscow? Because they can't. They have no legal leverage to do so. But I can tell you this, Putin's thinking about walking to Berlin. That's how serious this is.
Yeah. I know it's serious.
Yeah. I tell you, Nikki, Hilarious too put up a very good comment.
Okay, let me see.
Down to bottom. And Tracy Q, thank you for putting the link to my channel up. I appreciate it. But I think that's something that
Hebrew Hammer, you have a channel, don't you?
Huh?
Well, I have a YouTube channel, but I don't host anything. I only got a few videos on there and stuff like that. But mainly what I do is I'm a part of think tanks all across the board. So yeah. I don't put anything out myself, but I do go on other platforms and try to help people out. I own and operate. I have an FFL Class 3 SOT, so I'm a very busy person. I mean, very busy. So I wish I did. I wish I did have time
tonight.
I'm reading some of these. I'm reading some of these chats. Lori H said she didn't think bills are dated like coins and minting. Paper money is print. Huh?
Oh, that was Diamond. That was Diamond's granddaughter talking in the background.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Anyway, she said, I think the paper money is printed as a series. When they change the appearance of the bills, they probably haven't done any changes. Lori, I'm talking about from the founding of the country, and I want to get to after this Hilarious 2's comment, which you got highlighted on the screen. But when this nation was founded, we had what was the Continental dollar, which looked completely different from what we have now. And a lot of people don't remember this phrase, but back in the day, it used to be said quite often, something wasn't worth a continental dam. Do you all remember that? That wasn't worth a continental dam. Well, that is where that term came from, because the Continental Congress was issuing money, and it was worthless. And that's where the term comes from. It's worthless. It's not worth a continental dam. So the money has changed quite a bit over the years. I don't know when they started using the pyramid and all the phrases everybody's talking about, but it surely wasn't during the Revolution and the founding, and when our Constitution was written in 1789. So
Real
anyway,
quick.
hilarious too.
Hold on.
For in him all things were
Mountain.
created. Huh?
Hold on. Let's go back to the money real quick. Someone was asking why we don't see any bills dated to the 2017 date. Do you know anything about that?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I put up a picture of that Kennedy 5 my mother saved, and it says United States note at the top. It's dated 1963, and it was issued by Kennedy on executive order that it would be a United States note, not a Federal Reserve note. And all the quarters were solid silver and coin silver. Solid silver is 0.885 or 0.87, so they don't melt in your hand, basically. But anyway, I know about that. I've got one of those Kennedy 5s, and he was shot months after that was printed. So I don't know about 2017.
Okay. Do you know anything, Hebrew Hammer?
No, that's the first I've heard of that one.
Okay.
But
I do know why.
This is a good thing for me to close out on if you guys want to keep going. But Hilarious 2 put up for in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities. All things were created through him and for him.
Amen.
So that's where I'm going to go ahead and dip out. And I appreciate you all having me on. And it was nice meeting everybody.
Yes, sir. Good to meet you as well.
Thank you, Mountain Man.
I'm looking at the screen. I want to get your name right. Hebrew Hammer. It's very nice meeting you. Diamond, Nikki, thank you very much. And everybody in the chats, thank you so much for listening to me tonight.
Are you going live, Mountain Man?
If I do, it'll be at about 9:30. Maybe a little later, 9:35, something like that. I haven't really cogitated, got my mind right, but I might do that. So if anybody comes over, I'll see you over on my channel. But I appreciate y'all giving me your precious time this evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for giving us your precious time.
Okay, this is Mountain Man over and out.
Bye, Mountain Man. Thank you. Well, Hebrew Hammer, do you have anything you would like to share with us?
Well, other than what the subjects we've touched on, I mean, I think we've really touched a broad spectrum. Is there any kind of questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Hebrew Hammer? He's up here, which I've never had before, and I appreciate you spending your precious time as well with us.
It's a pleasure speaking with you and listening to you.
Yes, ma'am.
You've been in my chat, and I appreciate that. But this is the first time we've gotten to talk to you, so thank you.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. It is very rare that I do get on and pass this type of information and knowledge. Again, I wish I had more time. I really did. The extensive library I have, we could talk all night. But again, I think my place is to pass the information and knowledge and try to help these people. Because, excuse me, if I don't, eventually all of us will be on our deathbed one day, and we're going to contemplate our lives and think about the things that we did or did not do. And it's going to eat us up about the things that we did not do or even try, right? Even if you don't succeed, the element of trying will allow you your comfort on your deathbed. So that's my point of the things.
Amen to that.
Yes, let it be so.
That was powerful. Well, I hope you'll come up again, Hebrew Hammer.
Yes, ma'am.
I really enjoyed listening to you. You are a prophet of knowledge. Diamond, do you have any last thoughts you'd like to say before we end
No,
this?
this is probably the most quiet I've ever been, and I'm serious when I say that it was a pleasure listening to the two of you, conversing back and forth. I learned a lot, and I thank you so much.
Yes,
And
ma'am. I appreciate y'all having me. Thank you.
Yes, it was a great show, and I'm going to have to go back and listen again, to be honest, because there was so much said that. Well, I thank you all for joining me tonight. Thank you, everybody, my mods, everybody that came in tonight to listen, and I love you all. God bless, and have a great night.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, chat.